Have you ever, like, reached the end of a totally chaotic back-to-back kind of day and you're just, well, you're utterly exhausted, but you sit down on the couch and realize you didn't actually do a single thing that mattered to you?
Oh, yeah. Like, absolutely nothing on your actual list got done.
Exactly. You were moving a million miles an hour, answering messages, putting out fires all day, checking off boxes, but somehow none of it felt like it was actually your life you were living.
Right. It's a very weird disconnect.
It is. It makes me think of being a passenger in a car where someone else has entirely locked the steering wheel and they programmed the GPS to some mystery destination and glued your foot to the accelerator.
That sounds terrifying, honestly.
Right. But you're definitely covering ground. You just have absolutely no say in where you're actually going.
Yeah, and that is an incredibly common feeling, and it's
Yeah.
honestly an incredibly dangerous way to live. But the fascinating part, and I think this is what we're really getting into today, is that this feeling of drifting is entirely by design. Just perhaps not your design.
Exactly. So today, we're looking at a brilliant framework for taking back that wheel. We are pulling insights from a fantastic issue of the Breakthrough Bulletin by Coach Renee, which tackles this whole concept of intentional living.
It's such a good issue.
It really is. And the core distinction Coach Renee sets up right from the jump is the massive difference between living by default and living by design.
And I mean, that distinction is really everything. Living by default means you are basically letting external circumstances, deeply ingrained habits, and, other people's emergencies dictate exactly how you spend your hours.
Yeah, you're just reacting.
Right. You wake up and you simply respond to the loudest, nearest stimulus, like an email pings and you drop your focus, or a calendar invite pops up and you just hit without even thinking about it.
But before we can start actively designing our days, I feel like we really need to understand the invisible forces that are causing us to drift in the first place. Like, why is the passenger seat so incredibly magnetic?
It's so much easier, right?
Yeah. Why is it so much easier to live by default?
Well, there is actually a biological mechanism driving this.
Mm-hmm.
And the behavioral science, highlighted in Coach Renee's work, explains it beautifully.
Okay, lay it on me.
So researchers who study human behavior and habit formation point out that a staggering percentage of our daily actions do not involve conscious choice at all, like zero. They run entirely on autopilot.
Wait, really? Like, entirely?
Entirely. We are constantly making what scientists call reactive decisions.
Yeah.
These happen completely below the threshold of our awareness, rather than reflective decisions, which actually require active thought.
So it's just a constant loop of stimulus and response. The phone buzzes, the hand reaches out to grab it.
Exactly.
Or like someone asks for a favor and your mouth says, sure, before your brain has even bothered to check your schedule.
Yeah, and it happens to all of us. But a critical point we really have to make here is that we need to reframe the blame on this.
What do you mean by that?
Well, operating on autopilot is not a character flaw. It's not a sign of weakness or that you're just lazy. It is literally an evolutionary feature of the human brain.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the brain is this incredibly energy-hungry organ. I mean, it consumes about 20% of your body's energy, despite being just a tiny fraction of its weight. So it has a built-in survival mechanism to conserve power.
So it's basically outsourcing the busy work.
That's a great way to put it, actually. The brain takes routine behaviors and offloads them to a region called the basal ganglia. That's your habit center.
Okay, the basal ganglia.
Right. And doing that allows your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for complex problem solving, long-term planning, deep reflection. It allows that part to power down and rest.
That makes total sense.
Because if your prefrontal cortex had to actively process every micro action, like, I don't know, how to tie your shoes or which route to drive to work or how to respond to a standard greeting, you would experience severe cognitive fatigue before you even ate breakfast.
Which, yeah, biologically makes perfect sense. I don't want to spend high level of mental energy deciding which pant leg to put on first,
Right, nobody has time for that.
But I have to imagine there is a massive hidden cost to this kind of efficiency. If our brains are constantly looking for ways to go to sleep at the wheel and we don't deliberately examine this mechanism, couldn't we just drift through weeks or months or even decades without ever actually deciding what we want out of life?
And that is the ultimate cost of the default mode. Because the basal ganglia, it does not care if a habit is good for your long-term fulfillment.
It just wants to save energy.
Exactly. It only cares that the habit is familiar. So if you let the autopilot run unchecked, it will happily steer you through your entire life based on routines you formed years ago, or based on the expectations of everyone around you.
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit, though, because this sounds like a massive catch-22.
How so?
Well, if autopilot is our brain's natural, necessary energy-saving mode, isn't it going to be completely exhausting to try and be intentional all the time? Like, are we supposed to keep our prefrontal cortex fully fired up, analyzing every single thing we do every minute of the day? Because that sounds like a fast track to severe burnout to me.
I am so glad you brought that up because Coach Renee addresses this exact fear in the bulletin. The goal of intentional living is absolutely not rigid, obsessive control over every single minute.
Okay, phew.
Right. You aren't trying to manually override your brain's basic functioning or eliminate autopilot entirely. What you're doing is recognizing that a fulfilling life is assembled through the accumulation of a few small, deliberate decisions made at critical junctures.
Oh, I see. So it's about choosing your moments.
Yes, it's about taking the wheel at the crucial intersections. You can let autopilot run while you're cruising on the empty highway of your morning routine, but you need to step in and make a reflective choice when you approach a fork in the road.
Like what kind of fork in the road?
Like deciding whether to take on a new project at work, or how you spend your free evening, or even how you react to a really stressful email. You just have to ensure the destination programmed into the GPS is actually a place you want to go.
Right. Which brings us to the core question. How do we actually program that GPS? Because if autopilot is the default, we need a reliable manual override to help us make those reflective decisions when we hit those intersections.
Exactly.
And according to the bulletin, that override is rooted entirely in our values.
Yeah, calibrating your internal compass is basically the foundation of this entire framework. Your values have to become your filter.
Your filter, okay.
Coach Renee notes that without clearly defined values, it is dangerously easy to spend years and, honestly, a tremendous amount of effort pursuing goals that were never actually yours to begin with.
Oh, wow. That's so true.
You just end up chasing things simply because they look like success to your parents, or your peers, or society at large.
Chasing things simply because they look like success from the outside. That is such a trap. And I love a good analogy. So here is how my brain pictures this values filter thing.
Let's hear it.
Trying to make decisions about your time and energy without clearly defined values is exactly like going grocery shopping when you are starving and you don't have a list.
Oh, man. That is a highly dangerous scenario for anyone's wallet and health.
Really is. You walk into the store, your autopilot is running, your stomach is growling, and you just grab whatever is brightly colored.
Yep.
You grab whatever has a flashy on-sale sticker or whatever the store has deliberately placed at eye level right in front of you. You fill your cart with a bunch of random, highly processed stuff. But then when you get home and unpack it all, you still can't make a single, coherent, nutritious meal.
That is a fantastic way to visualize it. And in this context, the brightly colored items are the superficial markers of success, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the impressive job title that demands 80-hour weeks, or the social obligations that look really good on Instagram, or even the committees you join just to please someone else.
Right. But if you go into that same grocery store with a strict recipe list, and those are your core values, the entire experience changes.
Yeah, you have a plan.
You know exactly what aisles to skip. You aren't distracted by the flashy end cap displays because, quite simply, it's not on the list. Decision fatigue just vanishes.
And that is the true benefit of knowing your values. Decision-making actually becomes significantly easier. You develop this, objective criteria for saying no.
Which is so hard to do otherwise.
It is. But with values, you stop reacting to what feels urgent in the moment.
Yep.
And you stop the phenomenon of what the bulletin calls energy leaking.
Energy leaking. That is such a vivid, slightly painful phrase. We just bleed our time into these obligations that quietly drain us. So how do we actually stop the leak? The Breakthrough Bulletin provides a really practical micro-step activity for this, right?
It does. It asks you to sit down and list your top 5 values. Just 5.
Just 5. That seems tough.
It is. But you have to force yourself to prioritize. Once you have those written down, you think of a recent decision you made. It doesn't have to be a massive life choice.
Okay, like what?
It could be deciding to binge watch a show instead of sleeping, or agreeing to help a coworker with a project over the weekend. Then you look at your list of 5 values and honestly evaluate. Did that decision honor those values, or did it quietly ignore them?
Oh, I like that. It's essentially a retroactive audit of your autopilot. You are forcing your prefrontal cortex to look at what the basal ganglia just did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it prompts you to consider what you might do differently next time. It drags that reactive, unconscious choice out of the shadows and turns it into a reflective piece of data for the future.
Okay, so let's say we've done the introspective work. We've defined our 5 values. The grocery list is written and laminated.
Ready to go.
But here is where the rubber meets the road, I think. Because as the material makes very clear, having a list of values is completely useless unless those values physically manifest in your schedule.
Yes.
Like, if I say my core value is creativity, but I haven't painted or written anything in 6 months because I'm always answering emails, then creativity isn't my value. Answering emails is.
And that is the friction point where most people get stuck. Abstract values have to be translated into actual time blocks on your calendar.
Right.
This brings us to Coach Renee's concepts of designing with intention and releasing distractions. And there's a striking observation made in the bulletin that we really need to sit with.
What's that?
It points out that most people apply a tremendous amount of care and architectural intention to designing their careers. They meticulously research and plan their vacations. They agonize over the layout and decor of their homes.
Yeah, we spend hours on Pinterest for that stuff.
Exactly. But far fewer people apply even a fraction of that care to designing an ordinary Tuesday.
An ordinary Tuesday.
Yeah.
Wow. We treat our normal daily lives like they're just the dreary waiting room for the vacations and the major milestones.
But the ordinary days are where your actual life is happening. The milestones are just flashes. If your daily habits and your standard Tuesday schedule aren't actively supporting the bigger vision you have for your life, they are, by definition, pulling you further away from it. There's no neutral ground.
Which brings up the absolute hardest part of this entire framework, letting things go. The bulletin talks about the rule of commitments, and this is a hard pill to swallow. Every single commitment you keep is a commitment you are, by definition, not making to something else.
It is the economic law of opportunity cost applied to your human energy.
Yeah.
You have a finite amount of time. Growth requires deep discernment. It requires the ability to look at your calendar, identify what is quietly pulling your attention away from what matters most, and then giving yourself the grace and permission to release it.
And that's hard.
It's incredibly hard, and the trickiest part is that you often have to release things that are good or things that once felt entirely necessary to a previous version of yourself just to make room for the great.
Right. And the bulletin gives us 2 micro-step activities to start exercising this muscle. First, look at tomorrow's calendar and reshape just one block of time to better reflect your priorities, and do it before the day even begins.
Love that one.
And second, name one recurring obligation or habit that no longer serves your growth, and take one concrete step this week to release it.
It sounds incredibly straightforward on paper, but the actual execution of releasing an obligation is where people freeze.
And this is where I want to get very practical.
Yeah.
Because it is so easy for us to sit here and say, just release an obligation to protect your energy. But what happens when that obligation involves disappointing someone else in the real world?
Yeah, that's the tough part.
Like, what if stepping down from the neighborhood HOA committee or saying no to a recurring weekly sync at work means you are actively letting people down?
That is the core friction of intentional living. The fear of disappointing others is literally the #1 reason people stay trapped in the passenger seat.
Absolutely.
But if we connect this back to the bigger picture of opportunity cost, honoring your values means your energy has to flow toward what actually matters to you. You cannot direct your energy without violently protecting it first.
Violently protecting it. I like that.
Think about it this way. You are always disappointing someone. The question is, who?
Oh, wow.
If you say yes to a committee meeting that drains you out of a sense of guilt, you are avoiding disappointing your neighbor, sure. But you are actively disappointing your spouse, or your kids, or yourself by coming home exhausted and irritable.
Right.
If you are constantly buffering other people's disappointment at the expense of your own core values, you are choosing to live by their design. Releasing an obligation isn't about being selfish or careless. It's about being incredibly careful with the finite amount of life you have.
Wow. If you buffer their disappointment, you are choosing to live by their design. That is a gut punch, but it is the absolute truth. Okay, so we've established the psychological theory. We know we need to wake up the prefrontal cortex at the intersections, stop the energy leaks, and take back our calendars. Now we move to the master blueprint the bulletin provides for how you can actively build this life.
Yes, the ideal day introspective exercise.
Walk us through this framework, because it isn't just some fluffy daydreaming prompt. It's a highly structured audit of your life.
It really is. Coach Renee breaks it down into 5 distinct steps. Step 1 is to set the scene. You sit down and picture a single day that would feel deeply fulfilling to you. But the trick here is to focus on the emotional texture of the day rather than just a to-do list. Like, where do you wake up? And more importantly, how does the morning feel?
Emotional texture. So instead of just writing, I wake up at 6 a.m. and drink a protein shake, you write, I wake up feeling rested and I have 30 minutes of unhurried silence before the house wakes up.
Precisely that. Unhurried is an emotion, a state of being. Step 2 is to map the hours. You walk through the rest of this ideally from morning to night. Who are you interacting with? What kind of energy are you bringing to your work? Are you doing deep focused work or are you collaborating? How do you wind down?
So you build this beautiful, resonant picture of a day. What happens next?
This is where it gets highly practical. Step 3 is name the gaps. You take this ideal day you've just mapped out and you hold it up against a typical day in your actual life right now. And you literally circle the moments that clash the most sharply.
Oh, I can see that being incredibly confronting.
Yeah, it's not always fun.
You're basically holding a mirror up to all the ways your current life is falling short. Like, if my ideal morning is unhurried silence, but my actual morning is screaming at my kids to find their shoes while I burn my toast, that's a massive, painful gap. How do we face that without just getting depressed?
Or you prevent that overwhelm with step 4, which is find one lever. You look at those gaps, and instead of trying to fix your entire life all at once, you identify one small, realistic shift for each gap that would move your actual day slightly closer to your ideal one.
Okay, so if the gap is the chaotic morning,
Right, the lever might just be packing the kids' backpacks the night before.
just finding those small leverage points.
Yes. And finally, step 5. Choose one change. You look at your list of levers, you pick a single shift, and you commit to making it happen this week.
I notice a very specific detail in step 1 of this exercise that I really want to highlight, actually.
What's that?
The bulletin specifically demands that when we set the scene, we picture a single ordinary day. Not a major milestone, not a dream vacation on a beach in Bali, but an ordinary Tuesday. Why is that distinction so crucial to making this work?
Because it targets the exact psychological illusion that keeps people stuck in the default mode forever. It is so tempting to imagine that the gap between the life you have and the life you want is going to be closed by some dramatic, overnight transformation.
Like getting rescued.
Exactly. We think we just need to win the lottery or get a massive promotion or move to a new city, and suddenly we will be intentional and happy.
The classic someday mentality, like someday when I have more money in the bank, I'll finally relax. Or someday when I get the director title, I'll feel respected and confident.
And behavioral science, along with the core philosophy of Coach Renee's work, tells us that human meaning simply does not work that way.
It doesn't.
No. The gap between your current reality and your ideal life closes exclusively through the accumulation of small, deliberate decisions made on entirely ordinary days.
Oh, wow.
Because if you haven't built the skills to design a fulfilling, intentional Tuesday in your current town, you aren't going to suddenly find magical fulfillment on a beach in Bali. You'll just be the same unanchored, distracted person reacting to your phone buzzing, just sitting in a more expensive location.
You bring your default settings with you wherever you go. You can't outrun your own autopilot.
That is exactly why the exercise forces you to pick just one tiny shift and make it this week. It treats that single action, like packing the backpacks at night or blogging off 30 minutes for reading, as the first deliberate break in the life you are designing.
That makes it feel so much more approachable.
It does. You aren't trying to build the entire house in a single day. You are just laying one brick perfectly on purpose.
It's taking the steering wheel back from the autopilot, just for one turn, just to prove to your brain that you actually can.
And that single act of deciding on purpose tends to reveal something massive.
Yeah.
It shows you how much agency you actually have and how much of your life has just been running on old software without your active input.
This brings us to a wisdom nugget shared toward the end of the bulletin, which I think summarizes the stakes of everything we've talked about beautifully. The quote is, "A meaningful life isn't found, it's created, one intentional choice at a time."
It really represents a profound shift in perspective, meaning isn't a hidden trail you just stumble upon in the woods.
Right.
It isn't something someone hands you when you reach a certain age or salary. It is something that accumulates. And what's wild about that is this accumulation happens in the quiet, ordinary hours, long before anyone else on the outside notices a change in you. Every intentional choice you make, no matter how tiny, is a vote for the kind of life you are building.
You are casting a vote for yourself, which leads us directly to the reflection prompt that Coach Renee poses, and we want to pose it directly to you listening right now. What is one choice available to you today that would cast a vote for the life you actually want, rather than the life you've simply defaulted into?
And remember, you do not have to overhaul your entire existence before you go to sleep tonight. Just find one reactive choice and force yourself to make it a reflective one.
And as you think about what that choice might be, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We spent a lot of time talking about how your calendar is the physical manifestation of your internal values. So imagine this scenario.
Okay.
If a complete stranger were to look at your calendar and your daily habits, right now with absolutely no context and no explanations or excuses from you, what values would they assume you hold most dear?
Oof. That is a mirror that does not lie.
It really doesn't. Does your calendar say your core value is spending deeply present time with your family? Or does it say your core value is answering emails within 30 seconds and attending meetings that don't need you? It is time to break the lock on the steering wheel and climb back into the driver's seat.
Time to take the wheel.
If you enjoyed this exploration of intentional living, please check out the links in the caption below. You can subscribe for more opportunities for personal growth and deep insights, just like the concepts we unpacked today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.